Welcome to FullBleed.net.
Videos for the discerning basement dweller.
It can't be denied that when it comes to the modern superhero flick, Marvel Studios has a head and shoulders lead above the competition. And while Warner Brothers and DC do crank out some critical and box office successes, like Chris Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, they seem to generate more misses than hits. But if there's one thing that DC does, and has always done better than the competition, it's animated features.
Taking inspiration from the vintage Fleischer Superman cartoons, visionaries like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini brought us Batman the Animated Series, one of the most groundbreaking and visionary cartoons ever created. And nearly 20 years after its inception, it still holds up as the masterpiece that it is. From its humble beginnings, the DC Animation Studio has grown in leaps and bounds, bringing us such amazing series as Young Justice, or Green Lantern the Animated Series. So without further ado, we present to you FullBleed.net's Top 10 DC Animated Features. Number 10. Superman vs. the Elite. Based off of Joe Kelly's What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, Superman vs. the Elite is a Kryptonian-powered punch toward a modern, cynical world where the superhero has become passé, and the anti-hero is celebrated as more cooler. This movie spoke to me on an emotional level. Many casual comics fans dislike the character of Superman for being too milquetoast and perfect to a fault. And, to be quite honest, prior to my, actual reading of Superman comics, I was in the same boat.
Maybe this time they'll learn that crime doesn't pay.
Wow, okay. When have you ever said crime doesn't pay? Well,
the producer said it would be inspirational.
The story revolves around Superman's interactions with a new team of metahumans called the Elite. A band of superpowered would-be heroes that aren't afraid to use lethal force and seem to be in the hero business more for the power and respect that it awards them, and less because it's the right thing to do.
We turn bad guys into memories. So mind your manners, lads and lasses, or we'll blow your house down. We're the Elite. You asked for us, world. Now you got us.
After numerous attempts to dissuade them, the Elite decide that they've had enough of Supes, and it's time to put the old man and his outdated ideals out to pasture. This movie is directed toward the modern Superman fan, and may also serve as a good introduction to the character for many who may have misconceptions about him. See, this movie does what some other recent movies have tried. Only better.
They saw the ugliness of violence as a solution, and it frightened them. It frightened me too when I decided to cross that line and do what you do. Luckily, I'm not you, and I never will be.
Number 9. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. The first in a long and proud tradition, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm was a critical success, but a commercial failure.
Oh no!
This is attributed mainly to the Warner Brothers studio executive decision to release the film theatrically as opposed to straight to video, as was its original intention. Yet, despite poor box office performance, Mask of the Phantasm still holds up and maintains a massive cult following. A mysterious figure has begun systematically assassinating many major crime bosses in Gotham, and the Batman decides to investigate. For those of you who haven't had the ending spoiled for you, I won't reveal the secret here, but definitely give this a viewing. Seamlessly intercutting flashbacks along with the main story, Mask of the Phantasm is equal parts Batman Year One with several murder mystery elements that are reminiscent of The Long Halloween. And speaking of which, that leads me right to Number 8. Batman Year One. Frank Miller's classic origin story brought to life on screen, Batman Year One is an almost flawless adaptation of the story of just how Bruce Wayne became the Bat.
Yes, Father.
But, surprisingly, Bruce Wayne and Batman take a rear seat behind James Gordon, and arguably, he could be viewed as the main protagonist of the film. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the comic, Year One served as one of the main inspirations for Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, and you can certainly see where many of the elements from it in the latter two films in the trilogy came from. I've mentioned this story before, but seeing just how well this adaptation was done makes me really eager for the possibility that Warner Brothers may tackle some other graphic novels based on Batman's early adventures. While fans of Batman's Rogues Gallery may find themselves disappointed, being that the film is basically devoid of any supervillains, save Catwoman, who operates more as an anti-hero than anything else, and while the story may not hold a lot of twists, turns, or surprises for anyone who's read the graphic novel or, let's face it, seen Batman Begins, it's definitely worth the shot.
Ladies, gentlemen, you've eaten well. You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit. But your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Number 7. Flashpoint Paradox. A rather recent addition to the gallery, Flashpoint Paradox is a story of what-ifs and could-have-beens. Based on the DC Comics event that reset the continuity to the New 52, it deals with alternate realities and continuities, just like every other DC Comics event. After suffering a harrowing near-death experience, Barry Allen, aka The Flash, questions his choices as a hero and attempts to set right the tragedy of his past that set him down the road to heroism in the first place. Predictably, this causes rifts within the time-space continuum, disastrous results. As opposed to paragons of justice, Wonder Woman and Aquaman have become bloodthirsty dictators, obsessed with a war between Atlantis and Themyscira, with no regard for the consequence that their conflict causes to the rest of the world. Instead of his parents being killed in Crime Alley, it's now Bruce Wayne who was shot by Joe Chill and his father Thomas who sets out on his quest of revenge, and so on and so forth. Only Barry Allen seems to have any recollection of the past reality and seeks to set things right once again. This movie is brutal. While I'm not particularly squeamish about cartoon violence and can recognize the difference between animation for adults and animation for kids, this movie had me cringing at times. I don't necessarily feel that gratuitous violence will improve a movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I am glad they didn't pull any punches. I'm just amused at the thought of how many parents will put this on for their kids. Oh sure, honey, it's a superhero movie, how bad could it be? This movie finally gave The Flash the spotlight he deserves, while keeping a great cast of supporting characters. When this movie was over, I was actively disappointed, and it only touches upon aspects that we as a viewer definitely want to learn more about. This movie is rich with detail, and much like our lightning bolt-clad protagonist, blink and you'll miss it. Number 6, Justice League Doom. Doom is a great movie in its own right, but also functions really well as an intro to the Justice League in general. The story is tailor-made to exploring each member individually, showing their capabilities and weaknesses in a way that doesn't feel contrived at all. The story loosely follows the plot of the JLA Tower of Babel comics, though in this adaptation it is unfrozen caveman lawyer Vandal Savage leading a team of villains against the Justice League. Each member is sought out and taken down with a level of specificity that can't quite be luck. Each one of our super friends is put up against their own personal nasty bad guy, who each has their own specifically tailored nastygram for our heroes. Superman's goodwill is preyed upon to let him get his guard down long enough to get shot with kryptonite. Martian Manhunter gets dosed with a poison that makes him highly flammable, and the Flash gets turned into the bus from Speed. This movie has so much going for it, one of the best voice casts you could hope for, though New Frontiers is nothing to sneeze at. Tim Daly and Kevin Conroy are of course Supes and Batsy, but this movie has Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan. One of my favorite casting decisions of all time.
This is Green Lantern. I'm coming in. If you harm any of those hostages, you'll answer to me. Back in 5.
I would talk more about the story itself, but I wouldn't be doing it any justice. Seriously, the plot twist in this movie will make your jaw drop, and the ending is a great testament to one of the greatest tentative friendships in all of comics.